the possibilities. Now, here they are. Something came out of nothing naturally. There was nothing, and it just turned into something. Now, one, that doesn't happen. It's never been demonstrated, never been observed. You can't get something from nothing. If there's nothing there's nothing there. Okay? So the possibility of something from nothing naturally is ludicrous. The second possibility is something from nothing supernaturally. That is, an outside agency, through power, manipulation, whatever, supernaturally something was made. Now that's a plausible explanation. Of course, you have to go back to the supernatural to do that. Right? Let's see, what's the third one? I forgot. It's been so long since I used the illustration, I can't remember all four of them. I know what the fourth one is. The fourth one is, the fourth possibility is, this is not reality, there's nothing here, it's just you're nuts. Which that's a real possibility for some of them scientists. But it's something came out of nothing naturally, something came out of... Oh, the other possibility was it's always been here. Now, which we know can't be so. There's not a scientist in the world that believes it's always been here. There's a thing called entropy in a closed system. That means that as things run, they wear out, they slow down. Given enough time, the universe will reach what they call final equilibrium. Or some people call it a heat death. There's no energy left for anything, and so it just falls apart. Now, if you observe anything in nature, in our world, everything runs down, nothing runs up. Anything left to itself degenerates. You take the greatest hybrid corn or piece of fruit or whatever it is, if you don't do anything to it for 3 or 4 generations, it'll be just like it was when they started. Them great big old beautiful Chiquita bananas that are this big, if you didn't have them hybrids and all that stuff, they'd be like little brown ones about like that. Now, the fourth possibility is something came out of nothing, or something came out of nothing naturally, something came out of nothing supernaturally. It's always been here, or it's not here at all. Now, there's 4 possibilities. You say, well, the only one that makes any sense is something came out of nothing supernaturally. That's true. But science won't believe that. It's like I got a quote in the back of my other Bible. It said, one of them scientists said, we disproved evolution 100 years ago. But the only other option is intelligent creation, which we cannot believe, so we are forced to accept the theory we know is false. Brains, buddy. I mean, that guy's really got... Let me show you. Nothing... The possibility, which is the one the scientists go with, is that something came out of nothing supernaturally. Now, they took a jar and some water and a piece of straw. And they sterilized the jar. And they sterilized the water. And they took a piece of straw off the barn floor and they put it in it. And they waited 24 hours and they looked. And the water was full of little buggies. So then they sterilized the straw and they sterilized the water. Only the jar was dirty. And they put it in there, and 24 hours later looked in there and it was full of bugs. So then they sterilized the jar and they sterilized the straw. And they left the water dirty. It's full of bugs. Then they sterilized the jar. And they sterilized the water. And they sterilized the straw. And they looked, and there was nothing in it. And they waited 30 years, and there was still nothing in it. And now it's been almost 70 years, and guess what? There still ain't nothing in it. You see, life only comes from antecedent life. There's not a chance in this world that evolution is so. And the only book in the world that gives a plausible explanation to to evolution is that book. So one of the reasons I believe this book is the Word of God is because it gives a reasonable explanation for what I see. Number two, it's the only book in the world that can explain that Jew. Now, I don't know how much you know about them Jews, but that's got to be the wildest, craziest race of people that has ever existed. There is no reasonable explanation for why they're still here. How they have held on and increased, you can't explain them. They've been persecuted everywhere they ever went. Ishmael has always persecuted. In every generation, in every century, in every continent where they go, they always end up in trouble. The poor Jew goes off to Russia or to Germany, and darn if they don't persecute him over there. In the 12th century, long time before Germany, before Hitler, they were persecuting the Jews and putting them armbands on them and slaughtering them by the thousands. They were a small people from a small piece of dirt. And yet, thousands of years have gone by. Their language is still intact. The Hebrew that you read in the newspaper in Jerusalem tomorrow is exactly the same Hebrew that was used by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They've been slaughtered by the millions. They've been run from pillar to post. They've been scattered all over the world. And everywhere they go, they make money. And they make enemies. Nobody ever likes the guy that makes the money, especially if it's a foreigner. We resent it. And so everywhere we go, and the truth is, now I love Israel. I sure wouldn't do anything against Israel. Okay? Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, but I'm all for it. But the truth is, them Jews are obnoxious people sometimes. They're not a pleasant folk. And it's easy, if you get around a bunch of them, not to like them. And the world has always found a reason not to like them. But here they are. And here they are right back in Palestine. They are exactly where they started. Now you explain that. Well, there is no explaining. Civilizations have come and gone. Peoples have come and gone. Countries, empires come and go. And there's that Jew. Explain that. Well, the only place that you can explain it is right here. This book tells you where that Jew came from, what God chose him for, and how God chose to protect him. God is going to sustain that nation because that's His Son. Now, there's no other place, there's no other book, there's no other philosophy that it can explain that Jew. Brother Don Mangus a few years ago put out a series of tapes, 5 or 6 in the series, called That Jew. Somebody else got a series out or a book out called Dangerous Piece of Ground. I think Dr. Ruttman or somebody down there. That talks about how the hostility of the world is centered on that little piece of dirt. Let me tell you something. Look this up on your globe sometime or on your map. Now, I'm not saying this to prove anything. I just happen to think about it. Years ago, I was doing a thing on the Bermuda Triangle, which is about 1,500 miles. And I was fiddling around one day, and I just happened to look down, and there was Jerusalem. You know where Jerusalem is at? 30, 33. Longitude and latitude. Christ is 30 when He starts and 33 when He finishes. And He is the center of history. And right there, 30 and 33, that's Israel. I thought, now ain't that a coinky dinky? Number 3. I got to move along. I'm not going to get done. The third reason I believe this book is the Bible. The Bible is the Word of God. This is the only book on this planet that can explain the person of Jesus Christ. Now, the world has had its characters. We've had our Hitlers and our Mussolinis and our Alexander the Greats and our Napoleons and Genghis Khans and all that. We've had despots that slew people by the millions. We've had great men who erected great cities with incredible architecture, and how they built some of that stuff was pretty amazing considering the technology they had. And men that advanced learning, and some of those old men had tremendous insight. And just what I'm saying is the world has had some great men, some incredible men, some learned men. And they're all but gone. Unless you're doing a term paper, you're not going to look up Socrates or Aristotle or Aristophanes or Euripides or any of them other Ds. They're historical characters, and they're still around, but they don't impact our world. You know, we talk about Neoplatonianism and the philosophy of Plato, and it's an academic thing, and we pass off. It's one course, one semester in college, and you're. What about Jesus Christ? Born in the least city, in one of the smallest nations on the planet, to a mother and a parent father who are nowhere on the food chain. No nobility, no palace, no inheritance, no blue blood, none of that stuff. Born in a little bitty town to nobody people. Never went to college. Never started a revolution. Never won a war. He was no Napoleon. He never conquered the world. Yet, Jesus Christ affects everything in this world. And He is tangled up in things that you have to use every day of your life, time and time and time again. Every time you look at a calendar, you have to think about Jesus Christ. Why? Because your time started with His birth and His death. The world celebrates His birthday. There have been literally tens of thousands of songs written about Him. Millions of people have devoted their life to Him. There's more paintings and more art and more sculpture about the person of Jesus Christ than any other 10 historical figures in the entire world. Explain that. Explain the person of Jesus Christ. If you don't have a Bible, there's no explaining Him. You can't figure it out. He would be an anomaly of the anomalies. I mean, there just wouldn't be any way in the world to account for the impact that He has had on mankind. The hospitals, the charity, the kindness, the benevolence that comes where He's taught and believed. There's no explanation for Him. Nobody else, no 10 other people impacted the world like He did. No invention has impacted the world like He did. How do you explain Him? The only way you can explain is you've got to open this book. And this book explains why Jesus Christ